Today, we're counting down 10 of history's most pivotal founding fathers, what made them legendary, and exactly how each of them met their end. Stick around because two of these men died on the exact same day, the 50th anniversary of the very document that they wrote together. Number 10, John Jay. John Jay grew up wealthy in New York City, descended from French Huguenots who'd fled religious persecution generations earlier. Good education, and a fast track into law and diplomacy. In 1783, he helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris, the deal that officially ended the Revolutionary War. Washington later made him the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, a job that barely existed before Jay started doing it. He also negotiated the 1794 Jay Treaty, which avoided another war with Britain. As governor of New York, he pushed through one of the state's first major steps toward ending slavery. By his final years, Jay had long since withdrawn from public life. A stroke finished the job in May of 1829, and he died peacefully at home in Bedford, New York. He was 83 years old, one of the longest lived founding fathers on the list. Number 9, Samuel Adams. Before he was a revolutionary, Samuel Adams was a terrible businessman. He inherited the family brewery and ran it into the ground. Harvard educated and broke, it turned out that his real talent was making trouble for the British. Adams helped organize the Sons of Liberty and coordinated protests and boycotts against British taxes. He also set up the Committees of Correspondence, a colony to colony information network, decades before anyone even had a telephone. And he's widely credited as one of the masterminds behind the 1773 Boston Tea Party. He signed the Declaration of Independence and later became governor of Massachusetts. But in his last years, a severe tremor took hold, and by the end, the hand that helped write a revolution shook too badly to even sign his own name. Samuel Adams died quietly at home in Boston on October 2nd, 1803. He was 81 years old. A low-key ending for the man who basically lit the fuse on the whole thing. Number 8, Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry failed at almost everything early on. Farming, 2 failed stores, and broke by his mid-20s. He then taught himself law in about 6 weeks and passed the bar exam. Turns out that he had one elite skill. He could talk. His Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech in 1775 helped push a hesitant Virginia toward an armed resistance. He served as Virginia's governor 6 separate times. And here's the twist. Henry actually opposed the Constitution when it was first proposed, terrified that a strong central government would just become a new British crown. His pushback is a big reason that we got the Bill of Rights at all. Unfortunately, stomach cancer is the suspected culprit of his demise. Patrick Henry died June 6, 1799 at the estate Red Hill. He was 63 years old. Number 7, John Hancock. John Hancock was orphaned young and raised by his uncle, one of the wealthiest merchants in Massachusetts. He later inherited his uncle's shipping empire and a reputation as a smuggler. When the British seized one of his ships over a smuggling dispute, the resulting riots made him a folk hero. As president of the Continental Congress, Hancock signed the Declaration first and signed it huge on purpose, daring the British to come find him. That's literally why John Hancock became slang for a signature. He personally bankrolled much of Massachusetts' war effort, and the British marched on Lexington and Concord, partly hoping to capture him in particular. And later on, John Hancock became the first governor of Massachusetts. But chronic gout tortured him for most of his adult life. Flare-ups so severe, he sometimes had to be carried to public appearances because he couldn't stand. The gout finally caught up to him on October 8th, 1793. He was only 56 years old. Number 6, James Madison. James Madison was from Montpelier, Virginia. It's speculated that he most likely had a form of epilepsy, which caused him to have frequent seizures his entire adult life. What he also had was one of the sharpest political minds of the era. Madison is rightly called the father of the Constitution. At the 1787 Constitutional Convention, his Virginia Plan became the basic blueprint for Congress as we know it today. He not only co-authored the Federalist Papers, he also wrote the Bill of Rights, which were the amendments that won over skeptics of the Constitution. As the 4th president, He led the country through the War of 1812, a war so rough that the British burned down the White House while he was in office. At the end of his life, he was the last surviving delegate from the Constitutional Convention and was 85 years old before heart failure finally took him on June 28, 1836. Number 5, Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton's childhood was brutal. He was born out of wedlock in the Caribbean, abandoned by his father, and became an orphan before he was even a teenager. He talked his way into an education and clawed upward through sheer ambition. During the war, he served as Washington's aide and led a daring assault at Yorktown. But his real legacy came after. As the first Secretary of the Treasury, Hamilton built America's financial system from scratch, a national bank, and a plan to have the federal government absorb the state's war debts, which made the U.S. creditworthy on the world stage. He also wrote most of the Federalist Papers. His personal life was messier. He's at the center of America's first major political sex scandal, the Reynolds Affair. And when rumors surfaced that he'd also misused Treasury funds, he published a lengthy pamphlet admitting to the affair just to prove that the money wasn't the real issue. On top of that, he spent years in a bitter rivalry with Aaron Burr, a rivalry that ultimately ended his life. On July 11, 1804, Burr shot Hamilton in a duel at Weehawken, New Jersey. He died the next day in his late 40s. His exact birth year is still disputed to this day, but best estimates are that he was either 47 or 49 years old when he died. Number 4, Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was one of 17 kids born to a Boston soap maker. No money and barely any schooling. And yet, he became one of the most famous men in the world. He was a printer and an inventor, inventing things like the lightning rod, bifocals, and was a pioneering scientist of electricity. Franklin is the only founder to sign all three major founding documents: the Declaration, the Treaty of Alliance with France, and the Constitution. That alliance with France might be the single biggest reason America won the war at all. Franklin spent years charming the French royal court, and the French navy he helped secure is exactly what trapped the British fleet at Yorktown in 1781. Without it, the colonists almost certainly would have lost. On April 17, 1790, he died of pleurisy, a severe lung infection at 84 years old. An estimated 20,000 people came to his funeral, which was 70% of the Philadelphia population at the time. Number 3, John Adams. John Adams grew up on a Massachusetts farm. His father wanted him to be a minister. Harvard turned him into a fiercely principled lawyer instead. After the 1770 Boston Massacre, Adams took a case that nobody else wanted, defending the British soldiers involved, because he believed everyone deserved a fair trial. In Congress, Adams became one of the loudest voices for independence, and he's the one who nominated George Washington to lead the Continental Army. He spent years as a diplomat in Europe, became the first vice president and then the second U.S. president in 1796. He lost a brutal re-election to Thomas Jefferson in 1800, and the two former friends didn't speak for years, until late in life when they reconciled and struck up one of the most famous correspondences in American history. And here's where it gets unbelievable. John Adams died on July 4th, 1826, the exact 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. He was 90 years old. His reported last words were asking if Thomas Jefferson was still alive. More on that in the next one. Number 2, Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was born into a wealthy and prominent Virginia planter family. He became a lawyer, an architect, and an inventor. It's estimated that he held over 600 enslaved people across his lifetime, a stain impossible to separate from his legacy. He's most famous as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. As the third U.S. president, he pulled off the 1803 Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the country in a single deal. He later retired to Monticello, deeply in debt despite his fame. Now here's the part that should have your jaw on the floor. Jefferson died on July 4th, 1826. Sound familiar? The same exact day as John Adams. The same 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence that they wrote together, fought over, and eventually reconciled about. Hours apart on opposite ends of the country. He was 83 years old. And at number 1, the guy on the dollar bill, George Washington. Washington's childhood wasn't the wealthy, cherry tree chopping fantasy that people often assume. His father died when George was only 11 years old. He was mostly self taught, working as a surveyor on the Virginia frontier as a teenager. His military career started in the French and Indian War, where he survived genuinely disastrous battles. Later, as commander of the Continental Army during the Revolution, he held together a starving and freezing army through a brutal winter at Valley Forge. He pulled off the legendary crossing of the Delaware River and forced the decisive British surrender at Yorktown, the battle that, thanks to that French Navy, effectively ended the war for good. He presided over the Constitutional Convention, became the first U.S. president, and after 2 terms, he could have kept going. Instead of going for a 3rd term, he chose to walk away in 1797 and retired to Mount Vernon. Just 2 years later, in December 1799, he rode out across his property in freezing rain and came down with a severe throat infection. And his doctor's solution? Bloodletting. Over about 24 hours, they drained an estimated 40% of his blood trying to cure him, ultimately leading to the death of George Washington, who died on December 14th, 1799 at 67 years old.